Protests in the streets after the Trump administration decides to roll back the DREAM Act. Then 2 days later, the president tweets out, for all those DACA that are concerned about your status during the 6-month period, you have nothing to worry about, no action. We'll take a look at the impact this is having here in Colorado. Plus, it seems like there's always something changing the downtown Denver skyline. We'll hear what's in store for the future. And we are celebrating the League of Women Voters. I'm Ann Trujillo, and welcome to Politics Unplugged. They held up signs, chanted, and shared their stories. These are some of Colorado's 17,000 so-called dreamers, people who were brought to the U.S. as young children without documents by their parents or other relatives, who have been allowed to stay in this country, even start the road to citizenship by an Obama-era policy. They hit the streets in protest this last week after the U.S. Attorney General announced he was rolling back that policy, giving lawmakers 6 months to come up with a new plan, words that hit hard.
We want to send a message to Washington, D.C. that they need to put politics aside and put people first and truly come up with a solution to making sure that families are able to stay together.
We're molded in struggle, and the struggle doesn't stop, so we have to brush it aside, be strong, and just keep going.
Well, joining us to talk about these developments are immigration attorney James Lamb and Christian Solano Cordova from the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. So, gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Let's start with you, Mr. Lamb. What kinds of calls are you getting at your office given these announcements this week?
We're getting some calls for people wanting to explore other options, see if they have other avenues for relief in case DACA does, in fact, get canceled. Well, it has been canceled, but in case there is not a legislative fix or something else down the road. I would say that in general, people have been following the news pretty closely, so they're already pretty up on what's going on. So
it doesn't feel like a sense of panic that we've been hearing in some cases.
I think there is. I think there's worry, but I do think a lot of, this is really the well-educated, accomplished group of people, and they were paying attention to the news, so they're already somewhat, I think, mentally prepared for the possibility that this could happen. And
Christian, I know you're a DACA recipient, so your reaction?
Well, we saw this coming a mile away. With the pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, it was not a good sign for us. Doesn't tell us that this president has ever been on our side.
So you really feel like that was a turning point?
Yeah, I mean, pardoning someone who's convicted of violating civil rights of immigrants, that tells you something about where this administration's going.
So how are you feeling then in general?
I mean, I'm not in shock anymore. I think I saw it coming. I think there's a lot of people probably in shock, and that's okay. But I think I see this as an opportunity to move forward and really push for the DREAM Act. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm trying to move all my anxieties to feel more like excitement, I guess.
You talked about options, looking at options. Are there options?
It really depends on the person. The immigration law is very, very fact-specific, and seemingly extremely minor facts can have a tremendous difference on someone's life.
So give me some examples.
Okay. So, for example, if someone marries a U.S. citizen, which is something that a lot of people think will fix the situation, it doesn't necessarily. If the person had a lawful entry into the United States and they later marry a U.S. citizen, there might be an avenue of relief for them. But let's say instead that they came across at, I don't know, the age of 4 or 5, and they never had a legal entry into the United States. Well, it's going to be a lot more complicated, and there's a lot more hurdles to them ever legalizing their status outside of DACA. And so we have a lot of people who fall into this category where they're eligible for DACA. They're people that I think the United States would clearly benefit greatly from having, but because they don't meet some of the technicalities of the law, their way forward is blocked.
Some of what we heard from students this week is that they're concerned that the government has all of their personal information. Does that worry you in any way? Does that seem to be really an issue for a lot of people? Christian? I
mean, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the legal rules around using our information would be, but I do know that, I'm now, in case my work permit expires, I might have to worry about being targeted for deportation. And on top of that, many of us, we live with our families, and so, it puts our families at risk as well.
Do you really feel like you could be targeted for deportation?
I mean, after my work permit expires, that's definitely a possibility. The DACA program would, it protects someone from deportation. It gives a reprieve from deportation. And so if I were no longer covered under it, let's say 2 years from now, once my work permit expires, then I would definitely be open. it would be an open field, basically.
What happens to people who think they qualified for DACA but maybe didn't go through the process? Is this all done with, or
yeah,
choices are eliminated?
unfortunately, if you didn't have an initial DACA application filed, then that means actually through the mailroom at USCIS by September 5th, there's no more program for you. And for renewals, the problem is that we have a very limited time frame in which to do it. If the renewal application isn't submitted by October 5th, it won't be accepted thereafter, and it is only available to someone whose expiry date is between September 5th and October 5th, sorry, March 5th of next year.
And so for students right now, if for some reason this goes away, it would affect really their status as a college student, right? Their financial situation. Explain how that works.
Well, to use an example from my practice, I have one client in particular who, after she got DACA, went to professional school, took out student debt, and is now working in her field. And it's a field that, if her work authorization goes away, there's no question that she's going to have to leave. And not only is she going to lose her employer, she's going to lose that that entire profession, which to me is tragic.
Do you think that, well, let's talk about some of the options right now, because we see Congress, I mean, the ball is in Congress's court. They've not had success in the past in dealing with this issue. What would you like to see happen? What do you think could happen?
I mean, over the short term, I would definitely like to see a DREAM Act fix. Beyond that, I think we'd all like to have a more comprehensive fix where this country comes together and figures out what kind of immigration system we want to have. I don't see that happening, certainly.
Christian, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm exactly optimistic, but I'm definitely hopeful that a clean DREAM Act will pass without any ties to border wall or like extra, immigration raids. That's what I would like to see, and I think that's what a lot of people in our communities would like to see, a clean DREAM Act. And
what are you hearing in your community, whether it's your parents or your fellow DACA recipients? How are they feeling right now?
There's definitely a lot of fear, and it's good to acknowledge that's the case. But I've been trying to help people kind of channel all that emotion into something productive and take action and rally. The way I see it, once this program really expires, we're going to have 800,000 new activists at our disposal, ready to really go and target their senators.
Are you also prepared to go back to your country of birth? Is that something that crosses your mind?
No, this is my home. I haven't been there since I was 3 years old. All of my memories were formed in this country, so this is my home.
Do you think that President Trump will end up having to resort to executive action, much like President Obama did?
I can't answer that question. I think we get a tweet a day from Trump, as we just saw now. It would be very politically difficult, I think, I actually don't have a good answer. It would be very politically difficult to start deporting people as sympathetic and as so American as the Dreamers. So I would certainly hope that something would happen, but...
Christian?
Yeah, I would never know. He's definitely opened the door to that, it seems like. But, given that they painted this perfectly reasonable and constitutional program as unconstitutional, I don't know how he could backtrack on that.
We have about 30 seconds. Anything else either one of you wants to say about this program, and as we look forward to these next 6 months to see what happens?
Yeah, I think that President Trump views this as an opportunity to finally get the DREAM Act passed, something that the last two predecessors haven't been able to accomplish. But I don't think he's taken into account the human impact and the fact that he's playing politics with our lives.
Well, we will see what happens. We will all be watching. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We appreciate it. And we'll be right back.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.